I was in a group show recently, and I thought you'd like to see some of my new work. This is Hanging Family History Matriarchal Line. So it's my mother's ancestry in a three-dimensional form. Each triangle has a copper wire armature with rice paper around it. And each one of her ancestors, starting with her on the top, has their vital information written on each triangle. This piece is called Matriarchal Line. It's a laser cut steel plate, and it's about 8 feet by 8 feet. It has anecdotal stories, landscapes, and portraits of 10 generations of my matriarchal line, starting in Herefordshire, where the landscape is very pastoral and where they raise cows and sheep. My second great grandmother spun wool. That's about all I know about her. Her granddaughter was born in the United States and was orphaned and worked on the railroad in Idaho, feeding the railroad workers. My grandmother was born in Rexburg, Idaho, where her mother had her favorite cow, Bessie. And this piece here, the detail, shows my grandmother and some of the anecdotal stories of her life. She had a little pet dog that she'd dress up in clothes and a favorite tree. This is the landscape coming to me, so the landscape of places where I have lived in kind of a timeline type way, with the watercolor of myself looking back into time and forward into time at the watercolor down below, which is of eggs that I have harvested. This piece is called Weight. At the top is the clock, that my bird clock that my mother used, her monthly calendar, and on the bottom, the scale that she weighed herself on every day. At the top, it has the numbers of the scale instead of the hours of the clock. And the calendar has the numbers of the hours from 1 to 12 a.m. and 1 to 12 p.m. instead of the days. And the scale has the names of the people that she was keeping track of instead of the weight of the scale. The names of my brothers and sisters are on this scale, as well as my father and my grandmother, which symbolize what she spent her time doing for the most part in her life. There's the clock, which has the weight on it, the calendar has the hours, and the scale has the names of everyone that she was keeping track of. Handkerchief totem is made from my grandmother's handkerchief collection. It starts at the top with the oldest handkerchief, which is the most worn and tattered. I believe that was her mother's handkerchief. And the subsequent ones have beautiful handiwork on them from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. Then they become machine made to the 1960s, ending with the paper handkerchief on the floor. Matriarchal Line is an oil on board painting. It shows what I know of my matriarchal line, pictorially 5 generations back, and then there is no visual information. So I just have the vital information written beyond the pictorial information for 5 generations. Matriarchal Line was completed in 1999. The rest of the images and artworks in this show were done in 2014. Thank you for coming with me on this tour.